Chapter 761, Growing Fury. As Tang Xiu looked at the dying little girl on the roof of the car, never once did he dream that these damned bastards would be so cruel to tie up a child to the roof of the car and drive fast up to 180 kilometers per hour. If the rope was to loosen up and the girl was thrown out, she would definitely die a tragic death and turn into minced meat. What inhuman beasts! The way Tang Xiu looked at these people was as though looking at corpses. There was nothing on his face except a cold and detached expression. Hey, you. Where the hell did you fucking come from? You motherfucking bastard, you intentionally blocked the road? Do you fucking not know who we are? The first burly man quickly grabbed a knife from his waist, pointing it at Tang Xiu and angrily cursed. Tang Xiu snorted coldly and raised his hand to stop Immortal and the others who came out behind him. While looking at the big man who asked and walked closer, he asked, "Who are you?" The big man halted 4+ meters away from Tang Xiu and said, "We are your big daddy, punk. You fucking shit, did you not ask around who dared to block our little boss's car? Hey, big who? What the hell are you doing? Just fucking tell them to get aside. Don't delay this young master's errand to the power station. Beat them up if they dare to resist. Besides, nobody will care even if you kill some of them. They are just ants." A lazy voice spoke behind the 7 burly men. It came from a young, bleached red-haired haughty youth with pierced ears, who yawned and walked over. Tang Xiu was silent for a moment before his body flashed in an instant and appeared in front of the 7 burly men, and then delivered a barrage of violent punches to their heads. The 7 men's heads were like watermelons getting hit as they instantly blasted, while Tang Xiu straightly kicked their dead bodies and sent them several meters away. Hiccup. The young man blinked foolishly. His languid appearance vanished, replaced with deep fear, realizing that he had made a grave mistake, for he seemed to have just provoked a dreadful desperado. More so that, his men were first-class masters and all of them had practiced martial arts for more 20 years, and yet, how could they be killed by him so easily? Tang Xiu grabbed the young man's neck, lifted him up and interrogated him with a cold and detached manner. "Spare the rod. The child will be spoiled, and the blame is on his father. Tell me, who are you?" Caught in the neck, the young man could not breathe, and his complexion turned flushed red and increased his struggle to release himself. But he stared at Tang Xiu and kept blinking, seemingly wanting to tell him something. Bam! This time, Tang Xiu released him and slapped him to the ground. Then, he stepped on his face and said, quickly, "Who the hell gave you the balls?" The young man coughed and shouted, "Take your foot off me, bastard. I'm Miao Wenlei, my father is the richest man in Mist Source Island, asshole. My family is the most powerful one in this island and you've practically offended me. Are you not afraid my old man will kill you?" Miao Wenlei, eh? Having your name is enough. Tang Xiu's foot pressed down and stepped on his neck. Then, he heavily kicked him away for dozens of meters until his body hit a big tree. After that, he asked with a grim face, "How long does it take to get to the Twin Brooks City?" "About 3 hours, answered Mo. Tang Xiu nodded. He then came to the car a few meters away and floated to the roof. Then he looked at the dying little girl who was still conscious, and quickly cut the rope and carefully picked her up. What damned assholes! He found that the little girl had been cruelly beaten, as several bones in her small body had been broken. The most important thing was that she had lost too much blood and her whole body was cold. Tang Xiu quickly injected his primal chaos force into the girl's body to quickly protect her heart and blood vessels, and then took out a holy healing medicine, split 1/10 of it and stuffed it into her mouth. "Don't be afraid. I've already taken care of those bad guys. Be strong and endure the pain, I'll mend your bones. It will only take a short while, and you'll be much better shortly after." Yet, there was no reaction in her eyes. She seemed to not feel any pain from her injuries. Tang Xiu sighed inwardly. He knew that the little lady had suffered too much pain. Only when one had gone through torture for a long time would they become numb. At this moment, however, he did not want to delay more and quickly took off her coat and started mending her bones. Because there was primal chaos force to protect her vitality, Tang Xiu steeled his heart despite knowing that the process would still pain her. Amid the little girl's screams, he quickly mended her broken bones back to their previous state. With the outstanding healing effect of the holy healing medicine, though it was only 1/10, it still made the girl's injury recover at a discernible fast rate. Tang Xiu then took off his coat and gently wrapped her body. His form then flashed to his car, handed over the little girl to Immortal and said in a deep voice, "Keep going down the road. After we arrive in Twin Brooks City, ask around who's the richest and most powerful man in Mist Source Island. Also, find from which family this Miao Wenlei bastard comes from." Understood. Moa received the little girl and carefully took her to the car, giving the driver position to Shui Sha. A few hours later, the sight of a city loomed before their eyes, as the 4 cars continued driving along the road fast and quickly entered the city. The once bustling city was now dead, with death cheat looming over. There were no vehicles on the wide roads, and only a handful of pedestrians passed by on the roadside. The Tang Manor Martial School was located in Twin Brooks City. After inquiring around, the 4 cars quickly stopped at the entrance of the Tang Manor Martial School. What surprised Tang Xiu was that nearby the stone lion statue outside the gate of the martial school were 2 young men, holding a flying swatter and fiddling with their mobile phones with listless faces. "Who are you?" One of the youths looked up. As he saw Tang Xiu, Mo, and the others behind him, he immediately asked with knitted brows. "I'm looking for Tang Han," said Tang Xiu. "Wait, you don't have any electrostatic gadget with you? Are you, by chance?" The youth looked at Tang Xiu with a bit surprised expression and suddenly asked. "Yes, we're not infected," said Tang Xiu. "How is this possible?" The lad was shocked. "Everyone in Mist Source Island is infected. And you, no, something's not right. Are you from the outside? Also, from those foreign?" "No. We come from the mainland." Tang Xiu waved his hand to interrupt him and said, "If this place is really the Tang Manor Martial School, I don't think I've come to the wrong place. Please take us to see Tang Han." The young man hesitated. "Our schoolmaster is currently unable to entertain any guests." "I'm her younger brother," said Tang Xiu. The young man was stunned for a moment, before he immediately rolled his eyes with a scornful expression and said, "Our master is an orphan since childhood, how come she has any younger brother, huh? I'll tell you something, amigo. You don't seem to want to make trouble by coming here, so I politely advise you to leave. We of the Tang Manor Martial School may have been infected, but there are still many of us who can still fight. I'm indeed her younger brother. Whether or not you find this is the truth, you'll know it later after you notify her." "All right, I'll give you several minutes, so come back here quickly," said Tang Xiu. The lad hesitated for a while and looked at the people behind Tang Xiu before he eventually ran inside. In the Tang Manor Martial School, inside a quaint and antique study room, Tang Han was quietly reading a book. Her face looked faintly pale and from time to time, she grabbed a fly swatter and turned its switch on and off to herself for a while. "Schoolmaster," a youth shouted loudly outside the study room. Tang Xiu looked up and spoke, "The door is not closed. Come in and speak. There's a group of people outside, schoolmaster. And the young man leading them said that he's your younger brother. I wanted to drive them away, but I found the people he brought are like martial arts masters, so—" "A younger brother?" With a slightly changed expression, Tang Han abruptly stood up from the sofa and said, "Take me to see him." The youth looked doubtful and suspicious, but he still nodded. Just as he walked for a few steps, he seemed to remember something all of a sudden and spoke again, "Schoolmaster, that guy claiming to be your younger brother said that he came from the mainland, and the most unbelievable thing is that they are not infected by the virus." Tang Han's pace instantly quickened upon hearing this. When she strode out of the martial school's front gate, her eyes fell on Tang Xiu's face. A complicated look flashed in her eyes, and she felt like wanting to cry all of a sudden. Ever since the outbreak of the darkening virus that infected everyone in the entire Mist Source Island, she had been hoping and looking forward to having someone coming from her family. And at the moment, a member of her family finally came. More so, the one who came was her younger brother, Tang Xiu. She had no deep attachments and feelings toward her Tang family, and neither did she feel that her parents were loved ones or family members at all. But ever since she received a message for the family 6 months ago, she suddenly found that there was another relative who had something in common with her, and that was Tang Xiu. She had seen Tang Xiu's photos and read the information about him. She also knew a lot about what Tang Xiu had done in the past 6 months. Of all the people in the world, she only admired a few people, and Tang Xiu was one of them. She involuntarily felt a sense of attachment towards him. Tang Xiu? Tang Han's lips squirmed as she quickly came to Tang Xiu's front and quietly observed his handsome face. Tang Xiu himself had an inexplicable caring feeling and respect for Tang Han. Knowing that she had been sent out at a very young age by the family, and only had a handful of the time she could spend with her family, it could be said that she had already paid too much for the sake of the Tang family as a whole. Without the awkwardness and strangeness of one's meeting for the first time, there wasn't any barrier that separated this feeling in this first meeting. Tang Xiu stepped forward, hugged Tang Han under the watchful eyes of everyone at present and softly said, "It's really been hard on you all this time, big sis." Tang Han's body trembled. Tang Xiu's soft voice hit her innermost feelings. As tears ran down her face, she did not reject his hug and stood still while being hugged by Tang Xiu, shaking her head hard, white biting her lower lip. "He understands me." Feeling warm inside, Tang Han felt really close to this younger brother of hers. Chapter 762, The Son-in-Law of the Wastrel. In the study room filled with tea fragrance, Tang Xiu took a seat on a soft sofa while watching Tang Han, who was busy preparing tea with some snacks. Deep inside, he felt warm even though they only had a few exchanges in the outside previously, but it then changed into a warm chat after they came into the study room. "How about tasting pu tea, brother?" After taking a seat across Tang Xiu, Tang Han asked with a smile. Tang Xiu picked up the small teacup and sipped. Then he gently nodded and sighed. Tea lovers are always interested in tasting the tea, sipping it while keeping the fragrant aftertaste in their mouths. "Speaking about it, this tea is really great, big sis." With eyes lit up, Tang Han raised her thumb and praised, "You're really worthy as an outstanding student of Shanghai University, brother. Words flow from your mouth like the polished pen of a master. Anyways, I'll give you the rest of the best pu tea later if you like it." "A gentleman doesn't seize a lady's thing, big sis," Tang Xiu faintly smiled. "Besides, I rarely have spare time to drink tea and calm my mind, to begin with. So it would only be a waste if you give it to me. But I'll be able to see you again after I have some more time, though. Hence I can taste this pu tea again with you when the time comes." "That's also fine," Tang Han smiled lightly and took the fly swatter. After turning on the switch and touching it with her finger, the electrostatic currents entered her body and helped her suppress the darkening virus in her body. When Tang Xiu saw this, he got up and went towards her. Under her astonished eyes, he grabbed her wrist and checked her pulse for half a minute, and then said, "Sis, call someone to get a bowl of clear water. Also, you should have some trusted subordinates since you've managed the Tang Manor Martial School for so many years. You can call them to come here as well." "What for?" Tang Han was confused. "I'll help you eliminate the darkening virus," said Tang Xiu. "You what?" Tang Han suddenly jumped up from the sofa and asked with a shocked face, "Brother, did you say you're able to treat this infectious disease?"
"Yeah,
"I can," said Tang Xiu. "I know you're hailed as a miracle-working doctor in the Chinese traditional medical field, but I never expected you to be this powerful." To think that you can treat also this dreadful darkening virus as well. All right, wait here, then. I'll find someone, said Tang Han excitedly. Tang Shou stopped her and forced out a smile as he said, Sis, my method is very special, and the treatment also needs something special. Hence, you must not spread out the fact that I can treat this darkening virus. Unless those people are ones you trust the most, don't bring nor tell anyone about this. But why? Tang Han was perplexed. Firstly, the drugs for treating this infectious disease are very special, and I'm afraid I have no way to cure everyone on Mist Source Island even if I were to spend days and nights to concoct, explained Tang Shou. And secondly, it's very expensive. Rescuing a few people is fine, but it will be impossible to save too many people even if we sell everything we have. Tang Han understood in a flash and replied with a regretful expression. Suppressing the darkening virus now is but only a temporary solution, while static electricity itself would be harmful to a human body. If people are still unable to eliminate the darkening virus after a while, I'm afraid. Divine Dr. Gui Jianzhou is currently doing his best to research the antidote, while the state will also send a large number of medical experts here. Tang Shou forced a smile and said. I may be a Chinese medical doctor, but I'm not a saint. I can only make use of the best materials where it is needed most, and therefore can only solve the problem with the safety of the people I care about first.
Yeah.
Tang Han felt warm inside as she gently nodded and said. I only have 12 people worth my trust in the Tang Manor Martial School. They are all my loyal supporters and have contributed a lot to the Tang family, while the number of armed forces I've trained is around 206 people. I can also vouch for their loyalty and reliability. What do you think, is it too many? No, it is fine, Tang Shou shook his head and said. Call all of them and gather them together. I'll immediately treat them after treating you. All right, then, Tang Han replied and then went out. Without wasting much time, she came back with a bowl of clear water, watching Tang Shou break a pill and throw half of it into the water. Then, she drank it up according to Tang Shou's instructions. A warm current surged inside her body, and the weakness caused by the darkening virus was then alleviated at a tremendous rate. Although she could not see the situation inside her body, she still could feel clearly that after the warmth brought along comfort. A pain like being pinched by needles appeared from every part of her body. She could still endure the pain, but after a long time, it brought a miserable feeling beyond description nonetheless. However, she believed that Tang Shou would never harm her. But after suffering for more than half an hour, she could no longer stand the stench coming out of her body and rushed into the bathroom at a very fast speed. Creak. As the study room's door was opened, Tang Han, who had taken a shower, rubbed her stomach and came before Tang Shou with a strange expression. Though she still felt weak, she could clearly feel that the weakness of her body was caused by the black substances discharged out of her body, as well as the result of diarrhea that made her defecate 6 times rather than caused fully by the darkening virus. I seem to be quite well, brother. Tang Han's eyes shimmered and she spoke with a cheerful expression. Tang Shou let out a faint smile. The pill he used was the holy healing medicine he got from Ji Qimei. Though he only had a few holy healing medicines left, it was a remedy for cultivators, to begin with. So how would its effect be defeated by such a mere darkening virus? As a matter of fact, after Ji Qimei followed Guyen to Earth and her interspatial ring got destroyed in the space tempest and lost all her goods, but once she used an immortal rank cauldron to concoct medicinal pills, the worst rank she could refine would highly likely be immortal rank pills. Where are those people now, big sis? Tang Shou got up and asked with a smile. Come with me. Tang Han said they are staying in the dormitory in the martial training field, and are now gathering in the training field. A few minutes later, Tang Han took Tang Shou, followed by Mo and the others to come to the martial arts training field of the Tang Manor Martial School. At this moment, in addition of the 206 core members of the martial school, there were also 12 trusted subordinates who had been trained by Tang Han there. These people were all genuine expert martial artists. Though no one among them had reached the martial arts grandmaster level yet, their strength was still a force to be reckoned with. Fresh water. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Tang Xiu took the clear water Moa gave him and then poured a half pill of holy healing medicine into it. Tang Han's expression this time was very solemn as she said with a deep voice, "Everyone, some of you may already know this guy beside me, while some others may not. Whether you know him or not, now I need to tell you that he's my younger cousin, Tang Xiu, who was assigned by the family to solve the problem of the infectious disease. Do keep in mind that this medicine is extremely rare, so I can only have my closest and most trusted people take it. Hence, you are not allowed to spread out this matter to anyone once you take the medicine, and completely solve the infectious disease that has plagued us." Everyone looked pleasantly surprised. They had been plagued and troubled by the darkening virus, driving them into a true despair. Though they could still temporarily suppress the deterioration of their bodies caused by the virus with the static electricity, it was but only a glimmer of hope. But now, they finally realized that the crisis would be resolved, guaranteeing their safety. As the holy healing medicine was dissolved and everyone took it, Tang Han immediately dismissed all of them. She knew what the consequences would be after taking the medicine, and naturally did not want to see the embarrassment of her subordinates, and neither did she want to smell the foul stench. After returning to Tang Han's study room, Tang Xiu, who just sat down, asked, "Sis, do you know who's the wealthiest and the most powerful man on Mist Source Island, someone with a Miao surname?" "Miao Hengfu?" Tang Han interjected with a surprised expression. "Why are you asking about him?" A cold glint flashed in Tang Xiu's eyes as he said, "The spoiled son's mistakes can never be separated from the teaching of his father. His son Miao Wenlei was simply a beast, but I already killed him with his thugs." "Humph. I've already done it, so I might as well weed out the source of the trouble for good." With a tongue-tied and dumbfounded face, Tang Han looked at Tang Xiu for a long while before she let out a wry smile and said, "Brother, if you still can. Forget it. You've done it already, and weeding out the source of trouble for good will be for the best indeed. Actually, it's not like his father spared no rod to discipline his spoiled son, but rather the contrary, it's like father like son. Miao Hengfu is a ruthless, merciless, and cunning man. I don't know how many people he has harmed all these years, but even if the government want to get rid of him, they have never found any evidence that he was behind those evil deeds, hence why he always comes out scot-free. Besides, there's also someone else behind his back." Tang Xiu frowned and asked, "Someone else behind him? Who is it?" "It's someone from the Mu family of Beijing, Mu Jianhua," answered Tang Han. "What?" Tang Xiu exclaimed. "What's wrong?" Tang Xiu was puzzled. Though the Muse are quite powerful and have some influence in the capital, they are still inferior to our Tang family, no? It's not like they are worthy enough to make you fuss over about it. Tang Xiu hesitant for a while before he forced out a smile and said, "I won't make a fuss over it if it's only the Mu family. But the problem is, that Mu Jianhua is my future father-in-law." Pfft. Tang Han laughed and was at a loss whether she had to cry or laugh. "I gotta say you're really great, brother. To think that you even captured the renowned capital's first belle, Mu Weining, that was really unexpected, you know. Regardless, though. It's like you just fought with a stranger only to know that he's your relative in the end. Well, you actually killed the son of a man whose patron is your future father-in-law, and I dare say your future father-in-law will go all out to fight you if you also kill Miao Hengfu." Somehow, Tang Xiu felt a bit helpless inside and just forced a wry smile as he said, "It can't go far to that extent, can it?" "How could it not be?" Tang Han smilingly refuted. "Mu Jianhua is just good-for-nothing trash in the eyes of the other members of the Mu family. Even if his old man is the patriarch of the Mu family, there is no way he will inherit that position. I think you should learn something about your future father-in-law. This guy is simply, well, let me tell you something. If you kill Miao Hingfu, that will be akin to destroying your future father-in-law's biggest source of income, and it would be strange if he wouldn't lose all decorum with you. I don't get it, Tang Xiu frowned. If Mu Jianhua has such a money source from Miao Hingfu, how come he asks money from his daughter to pay his debts? There was a surprised expression on Tang Han's face, but she immediately replied, I think you may have underestimated the profligacy of your future father-in-law, brother. People might not be aware, but just 3 years ago, I heard that Mu Jianhua was in the casino city, Las Vegas, and lost more than 600 million yuan at a time. Holy cow! Tang Xiu was really taken aback by how big Mu Jianhua's deeds were. Chapter 763, Muddy Waters. Tang Xiu previously thought that even if Mu Jianhua was just a derelict in duty and incompetent, he would at best only be good-for-nothing silk pan. Little did he expect that he would play so big, burning 600 million in one gamble. 600 million yuan. This amount may be small in his eyes, but it was an astronomical figure in the eyes of countless people. Some could never earn a tenth or even 1% of that amount in their entire lives. What a wastrel! Tang Xiu suddenly sympathized with Mu Weining for having such a superb father, a blood parasite who had indeed been sucking her profits for a long time. After lighting a cigarette, Tang Xiu took a few puffs and then made up his mind. Killing a man's son was an enmity that could never be written off. Now that he already killed Miao Wenlei, he could not leave behind a dormant disaster. But then again, killing Miao Hingfu must not be done in public, otherwise, Mu Jianhua would know about it. Even if he wouldn't dare to do anything to him in return, but he would likely bear a grudge and ill feelings toward him. Suddenly, Tang Xiu's expression changed as an ingenious machination birthed inside his mind. Tang Han, who had been observing Tang Xiu, was somewhat curious. After knowing that Miao Hingfu had Mu Jianhua as a patron, what would her younger brother decide to do? What are you thinking? Well, I'm pondering about some machinations. Tang Xiu smiled. Tang Han's curiosity was piqued and asked again, what scheme? Come on, tell your big sis. Tang Xiu just smiled in response and did not straightly answer her question. Instead, he called Mo and the others, and then spoke to them, you should be less than 30 years of age, shouldn't you, San? And your face is a bit similar to that Miao Wenlei I killed before. If I help you disguise and turn you into Miao Wenlei, can you imitate his arrogant and unbridled manner? I've seen him once, so imitating him won't be a problem, boss, said San quickly. If so, then you, along with Jin Shi, Shui Sha, He Zian, Gu Tao, Zhang Zhu, and Zidane will immediately leave for the village on the southern side of the mountain in the center of Mist Source Island. Zidane has already investigated before that those 20-plus people stationed there are from the Mexican Mafia, the Reston, who are led by its second-in-command, Shinlei Duomo. Your mission is to provoke the people from this Reston Mafia. Kill a few of them and leave Miao Wenlei's name there before leaving the place. Yi Shisan's expression moved, and he asked, do you want to make him the scapegoat, boss?
Yeah.
We'll make him the scapegoat, Tang Xiu nodded. Miao Wenlei is dead already in any case, while it can be said that there's no evidence for his death whatsoever. Hence, my order is very simple. Make that Reston Mafia's second-in-command, Shinlei Duomo, go crazy and desperate and storm over Miao Hingfu, taking revenge for his son for Miao Hingfu, so he will fight the Reston. Consider it done, boss. We'll make sure to accomplish the task, said Yi Shisan with a firm nod. Tang Xiu waved his hand and motioned for them to leave. Then he looked at Mo and said, take Feng Yang, Shui Gui, and He Wuya with you and investigate all the foreign forces in Mist Source Island in the shortest time. They are harboring some evil schemes, and we must not ignore and leave them alone no matter what. Orders received. Mo clearly understood that this was the duty and responsibility on Tang Xiu's shoulder in coming to Mist Source Island. He immediately left with the other 3 men. Tang Han looked at their backs as they left before she asked with a hesitant expression, will they be okay, brother? Why don't you wait for some time until my men get better to join them? There's no need for the time being, said Tang Xiu with a smile. Ah, and the rest are masters who can face hundreds of enemies. Besides, it's what they excel at, so no worries. I'll tell you to move your men if there are any matters that need to be dealt with later. Knock, knock. The door was knocked, and then a middle-aged woman in her 40s entered the room. With a grateful expression on her face, she faced Tang Xiu and said, "Schoolmaster, Mr. Tang, we've investigated Li Wei's identity and background. She's an inhabitant of Twin Brook City, and her parents were killed 2 days ago. We checked it through the card, done some search and monitoring, and we can determine that it was done by Miao Wenlei's people. Also, Li Wei, she has suffered a lot of torture. Put it simply, be it her chastity, body, and spirit, she suffered great trauma. And she is now sleeping after we comforted her. Those damned beasts." Tang Han's face was full of anger. She clenched her fist and slammed the sofa armrest. Tang Xiu thought for a moment and said slowly, "Sis, I'll leave Li Wei in your care here. I have tons of things to do later, so I can't bring a little girl with me." "Don't worry," Tang Han nodded. "When the crisis on Mist Source Island is solved, I'll send someone to investigate whether she still has other relatives. If there is, then it will be for the best, but if she doesn't, let her stay in the Tang Manor Martial School. I'll adopt her." "That's fine too," Tang Xiu nodded without speaking much. In the valley, dozens of kilometers south of Twin Brook City, dozens of military tents were erected nearby with a throng of heavily armed burly men guarding and patrolling the vicinity. Inside one of the largest tents in the middle, the war intelligence elder of the pyramid organization, Elder Wu Jia, was pacing back and forth before the map of Mist Source Island. About 2.5 hours ago was the agreed time of communication, and the dispatch subordinates, Su, and his men did not contact him as per ordered and also did not answer the communication contact whatsoever. All of which became a haze that hung over his mind. A drop of water fell. It was suddenly falling from the tent as a hazy shadow made of water then immediately formed by the dripping water. Finally, after a scene of quiet solidifying of the water curtain, a young pretty girl appeared. "Have you found them, Posinu?" Wu Ji stopped and asked. Nodding with a solemn expression, Posinu then took a small camera. After turning on and choosing a video player feature, she immediately played the video content inside. "Bastard." After watching the video, a furious look appeared on Wu Jia's old face as he smashed the golden cane in his on the ground, creating a blasting wave that destroyed the entire tent. The content played in the video was a spot of the forested mountain that was in a mess with dozens of his subordinates being bitten and swallowed by the beasts in the mountain forest. There were also several dead bodies near them, corpses of bloodkin with the Stygian Club's member crest. "War Intelligence Elder, after my investigation, the ones who killed Su and the others are members of the Stygian Club. Moreover, the dead bodies of the Stygian Club's members also remained there," said Posinu in a deep voice. "Have you located the position of Keith Moore and his men, Posinu?" asked Wu Jia in a cold voice. "I have. They are in Mixed Summit City," answered Posinu. "However, the group of people targeted by Su has disappeared. We have spent quite some time and energy to find them, but failed." "Humph. There are only 2 possibilities. The first is that Tang Xiu has been taken away by the Stygian Club's people, and the second one is that he's escaped and is hiding." Wu Jia coldly snorted. "Regardless, we must take action. Notify Boda and tell him to go to Mixed Summit City himself. If he finds Tang Xiu, then kill him at once. If he can't find him, then give Keith Moore a lesson." "War Intelligence Elder, are you really sure we have to battle the Stygian Club?" Posinu interjected quickly. "If my info is correct, Keith Moore brought a lot of Stygian Club's experts to Mist Source Island. I'm worried that there's nothing to worry about. The pyramid also took precaution in numbers when we come to Mist Source Island this time. Our numbers are much more than what appears on the surface, said Wu Jia with a thick tone. We have yet to lose all decorum, though there have been some frictions with the Stygian club in the past. But now, Keithmore must pay the price. All right, then. I'll immediately inform War Elder Bodud immediately, Posinu nodded. Wu Jia waved his hand and looked at the direction of Twin Brooks City with a grim expression. He brought a lot of confidants this time, and Su was his right-hand man. The Elementalist squad led by Su was also his most loyal force. The loss this time was too big for him, too big that he began to feel vexed and aggrieved. Mixed Summit City. On a street north of the city was where the Stygian club was stationed on the island. Keithmore crushed the teacup in his hand as a ruthless light burst from his eyes. Basil and Ality, who stood in front of him, did not dare to breathe loudly and just bowed their heads without speaking. 4 counts of the Dark Soul squad have been killed just like that? What the fuck were you two doing then? I trained those 4 counts myself. Do you know how big was my investment in them? Chinese cultivators, huh? Even if these Chinese ascetics are very mysterious and extremely formidable existence, that is not a damn excuse for your failures. Find those fucking bastards. I'll break their bones and scatter their ashes. After unleashing his tantrum, only then did Keithmore finally calm down. Basil finally heaved a sigh of relief inwardly. He braced himself and continued his report. Their strength is, in fact, not that powerful. Tang Xiu himself is just as strong as us. But the might of the sword he uses is way too powerful, and I can sense enormous energy within it. Even I'm sure that it's more superior to the Demon of Darkness artifact belonging to our Stygian club. Keithmore was stunned and stared at him, and then suddenly asked, "Are you sure?" "I'm sure about," Basil firmly nodded. "Tang Xiu is not very powerful. I may not be able to defeat him myself, but I'm sure I can defeat him if I join hands with Ality. But his sword is too powerful and way too strange, so we—" Keithmore waved to interrupt him. There was greed in his eyes as he said in a deep voice, "If this is the case, then I'll do it myself. Find out where he is now at the fastest speed possible. Also, notice the other Dark Soul squads to aid you, and tell them to immediately report to me at once when they find him." Orders received. The defeat Basil previously suffered was too big a humiliation and shame for him. Upon hearing that Keithmore wanted to act himself, he faintly looked forward to it. He could wash the shame if Keithmore could kill Tang Xiu. Even if he was not able to do so, he would definitely be able to cause massive losses to him. "Sir, I will need your command insignia, else the members of the other 2 Dark Soul squads won't listen to me." "Take it." Keithmore gave his command insignia to Basil without hesitation. Chapter 764, Blazing Anger. The place on the southern side of the mountain in the center of Mist Source Island was a village with about 2,000 inhabitants, and it was also where the members of the Mexican Reston Mafia were stationed, led by its ruthless second-in-command, Xinlei Duomo. Xinlei Duomo had a mysterious origin and, other than the godfather of the Reston Mafia, the syndicate's first powerhouse was the likes of a dragon that was very difficult to be tracked. Nobody knew Xinlei Duomo's background and history. Ever since at the age of 12, this person wandered from place to place until eventually moving to Mexico. Rumor had it that she grew up in the most inhuman, cruel lairs and lived in the criminals' havens. She was said to be very formidable, powerful enough to make all members of the Reston Syndicate who heard her name fear her. Even some organized crime syndicates that were stronger than the Reston dared not easily provoke this mafia, not due to its mysterious godfather, but because of the existence of Xinlei Duomo. The Far East. It was the place Xinlei Duomo had been dreaming to come back to. But she had never set her foot on any Chinese territory since 2 decades ago, because she remembered a woman who had supported her until she turned 12, and also the one who imparted her a magical cultivation technique, had warned her before, "Do not enter China again, for your hands are stained with blood." But this time? She could not help but make an exception to visit the Far East finally, as she believed that Mist Source Island was not Chinese territory. On the one hand, she was instructed by the Godfather to come to this island and seize mineral resources and also seek for wealth. On the other hand, she still harbored hope of finding that woman's traces in this place. Even if she could not meet her, it was enough for her as long as she could find any leads that that woman was still alive. Knock. Knock. The door was knocked and the voice of her confidant came from outside the door. Boss, we found traces of battle near the White Fog area on the southern side of the mountain nearby. The traces are very strange, though. There are no signs of hot weapons being used. All the traces left on the battle scene are completely caused by cold weapons. Xinlei Duomo flashed before the door in an instant and opened it, grabbed her confidant inside and closed the door a moment after. Are you sure it was done by cold weapons? Asked Xinlei Duomo coldly. Her subordinate felt a chill fill his heart. Though he had long known that Xinlei Duomo was very powerful and had terrifying power far beyond a normal human being, he still succumbed to fear due to being grabbed inside all of a sudden. He suppressed his fear and braced himself to reply, yes. It's a very shocking battle scene. It's like some powerful monster beasts fought there, but from what we inferred, it was not caused by them, so it can only be human beings that did it. No, there were also some divergent races. Speak carefully, said Xinlei Duomo in a deep voice. We have investigated and found traces of vampires, the likes that of in the legends. And elementalists as well. Jinla has checked it out and should be returning soon. She may be able to bring back a more thorough investigation result, said the subordinate. A cold glint burst from Xinlei Duomo's eyes. She had once fought the Bloodkin and Elementalists. She knew that the Bloodkin and Elementalists had terrifying power. Of course, one of the reasons was that her two confidants were Elementalists themselves, and Jinla was one of them. Go outside and tell Jinla to come to see me once she comes back. Understood. As night fell, Xinlei Duomo stood by the window on the second floor with a solemn expression while looking at the northwest direction. It was the direction of the battle scene left behind at the White Misty area on the southern side of the mountain. That was reported by her subordinate. Suddenly, her face slightly moved and her figure instantly leaped out of the window, appearing in the vicinity about a few hundred meters away from the village. She then looked at the 3 or 4 figures who were desperately running away in the distance. She continued flashing forward and then appeared in front of them. What's going on? While observing her 4 subordinates with battered bodies, there was a blazing fire ready to burst from her eyes. But she still suppressed the anger inside and asked. Enemies, boss? Our 10-man squad was patrolling nearby, but little did we expect that we'd encounter a group of people. As a result, 6 of our comrades were killed by them, reported one of the scarred black men. Xinlei Duomo's complexion changed and she asked, who are they? The youth leading them claims to be the only son of Miao Hengfu, the richest man in Mist Source Island, named Miao Wenlei. He's very arrogant and rampant, but his men are very strong. We had some dispute and they attacked us at once, said the black middle-aged man. Xinlei Duomo's eyes turned cold and she said with a heavy tone, the richest man in Mist Source Island, huh? Humph, tell me, where are they heading to and where they should be now? They headed in reverse with our escape, to the southwest. I don't know where they are now, but the place we fought them was a few kilometers away. It's been only about 10 minutes, so they shouldn't be too far from here. All of you go back. With that order, Xinlei Duomo rushed to the southwest direction. She did not display her ghost-like movements in front of her subordinates, but after leaving their sight, she immediately streaked midair and used the tip of her toe to tap on tree branches and move in midair. In the southwest of the village, where the terrain had high altitude and had an excellent field of vision, 6 terrible-to-look-at dead bodies were lying near a towering old tree. 2 of them were of holes caused by bullets. Bastards. Xinlei Duomo's eyelids twitched a few times. She heavily stamped the ground as the soil suddenly cracked and spread out like a spider web. She had a lot of subordinates, and them dying was nothing to speak of. But nearly all the men she brought to Mist Source Island were her trusted subordinates, and training them had never been an easy task. But now, 6 of them suddenly died, whereas the 4 others were seriously injured. This loss left her somewhat aggrieved and distressed. She clenched her fist. Just as she was about to use the communication equipment to contact her men in the base, her eyes suddenly focused on something. She accidentally found a line of profane words engraved on the forehead of one of her subordinates' dead body. "Morons, this uncle fucked you up." Boom. Shinlei Duomo turned around and hit the big tree next to her with a heavy punch. The tree trunk that couldn't be embraced by 2 men was instantly blown off, flying upward and then crashing to the ground and scattering dust. Miao Wenlei. Miao Hengfu. Oftentimes, wisdom was much more fearful than combat forces. A few kilometers away, Yi Shisan used the infrared high-powered telescope to observe the furious Shinlei Duomo. He was just joking with Xue Sha, saying that she would stamp her feet in fury when she came to the place where her men were killed. But the result was that she punched and blew up such a towering old tree. She shouldn't be an elementalist. She shouldn't be a vampire. Yi Shisan and Zidane, who was also holding binoculars, commented at the same time and similarly fell silent in unison. After a long time and until Shinlei Duomo's figure disappeared in the distance, only then did Yi Shisan said, "We gotta report this situation to the boss. That woman has a very powerful strength and is not someone we can contend with. It will be very troublesome if something goes wrong with our plan." Zidane himself was someone who did things confidently but also cautiously, so he nodded and said,
Yeah.
"We might not know much about Miao Hengfu's strength as of yet, but he won't be able to fight Shinlei Duomo as long as he's an ordinary man. Such a powerhouse can utterly decimate a lot of ordinary people. Boss doesn't have the intention to use the hands of the Reston Syndicate to tear up Miao Hengfu's power. Hence you gotta report about this woman to the boss and we'll then move to carry out the next plan immediately." Got it. Wolfpack City. The Qingyuan group was located in the center of the city and covered an enormously vast area. The 5 4-storied buildings formed a circular shape and enclosed the 3-storied building in the middle. The 5 buildings were connected to an air corridor with the 3 buildings in the middle. It was shaped like the 5 dragons holding the beads. The top floor of the 3-storied building was a private restricted area for Miao Hengfu, the chairman of Qingyuan Group. Even the top management of the company was not allowed to there. Here was the place where Miao Hengfu relaxed and entertained himself. The interior decoration here was extravagantly luxurious and complete with all sorts of entertainment facilities. The top management of the Qingyuan Group knew something else, however. The 3rd floor was arranged by him to house at least 10 beautiful women. Do enjoy life to the fullest while in prime you run high, and never let your goblet to lie idle in the moonlight. It was this line of a poem that Miao Hengfu highly praised, even he especially made the words, "enjoy to the fullest," to be incisively showcased vividly. He now cozily nested himself on a soft sofa, enjoying the massage of a beautiful woman and tasted the grapes handed by another beautiful woman with an indescribable leisure manner. Ring, ring, ring. The rapid ringtone of a mobile phone suddenly rang. Miao Hengfu did not move. He did not even lift his eyelids, but the beautiful woman beside him took the phone carefully and then said after seeing the unfamiliar number displayed on the screen, "It's an unfamiliar number. Accept it." Miao Hengfu finally lifted his eyelids and watched as the beauty answered the phone. As she was about to speak, there was a quick roar transmitted from the mobile. "Boss, save US. This damned Reston Mafia. Arg." No voice was heard coming out from the phone after the shrill scream. Miao Hengfu's expression greatly changed and he suddenly leaped up from the sofa. With a grim expression, he took his mobile phone and went downstairs to the office on the 2nd floor, where 2 company executives then immediately followed him. "Check out this cell number for me." "All right." One of the executives memorized the number and quickly left the office. After a minute or so, however, he rushed back and reported, "Boss, I've already checked it out. It's a private number of a security guard of our company's security team. He was assigned to the flame team by you." "Where's he now?" asked Miao Hengfu in a deep voice. The top executive said, "I just inquired about it. The news is, he went out with your son last night and has not returned yet." Miao Hengfu's face looked dull and his pupils violently contracted. There were horror and panic in his expression. He immediately took his mobile out to dial his son, Miao Wenlei's number, but nobody answered. Something happened. Miao Hengfu's heart thumped hard and a bad premonition aroused spontaneously. Chapter 765, The Gradually Arising Chaos and Madness. Miao Hengfu immediately shouted, "Find out Wenlei's whereabouts. Contact the police and ask them to use their communication equipment. His mobile is still on, tell them to lock Wenlei's position from it. And send people to seek for him at once. But remember, I don't care about the method you use or the cost, you must find him as fast as possible." This. The top executive hesitated, but then forced out a wry smile and said, "Boss, the current situation is very particular. All of our people are infected, so it's unrealistic to carry out such a large-scale search. I think it's better to send out all the members of the security team given their preparedness. Once the police find the location of young Master Miao's mobile, our people can rush there at once." Miao Hengfu suddenly awakened. Now was indeed a special period of time as the entire people on Mist Source Island were infected by the darkening virus. Even if a method to temporarily suppress the virus had been found, it was nothing but a temporary solution. All the people on Mist Source Island were in a state of confusion and disorder, so it was indeed unrealistic to dispatch so many people on a large-scale search for his son. "Let's do as you said. But send someone to the security to clearly find out the situation. Ask who left with Wenlei. Ask everyone who might know where they went. I'll do it at once." As the two company executives left, Miao Hengfu paced back and forth in the office with a hazy head. He cast away the possibility that the company's security guard would call him and ask for help for no reason, because the members selected and assigned to the flame team were all his partners in crime and doing evil things, and also the goons he specially trained. As expected, the results of the investigation were quickly sent to Miao Hengfu. A total of 7 men left with his son Miao Wenlei last night, all of whom were members of the flame team, plus his son, Miao Wenlei, a total of 8 people. And they left just this morning after having a party and enjoying other kinds of entertainment in a multi-millionaire club. Miao Hengfu watched the traffic surveillance video sent by the traffic police team. What made him burst into fury was because that wastrel son of his even tied a little girl to the roof of his car, and sped along the road through the center of the city road and headed towards the mountain in the center of the island. "Gui Chang, take some men and find him." Miao Hengfu called the flame team's captain, who was also his trusted goon. At the Tang Manor Martial School, Tang Xiu received the report from Zidane. When he heard that Xinlei Duomo from the Reston Syndicate was actually an expert, he immediately became interested. It had to be noted that Zidane and Yi Shisan were all cultivators that had reached the foundation establishment stage, yet their strength was nothing to speak of against the other party. This piqued Tang Xiu's interest and curiosity about Xinlei Duomo's identity. "Do you want to go in person?" Tang Han asked with a hesitant expression. "I'm indeed interested and want to have a look at the situation myself," Tang Xiu nodded. After all, for a member of an overseas crime organization to have such strength is an abnormal case in and of itself. "Sis, stay here and wait for my news. The machinations I've been laying out this time are not only against Miao Hengfu and the Reston, but also the other 2 much stronger forces. As long as the play runs according to my script, it can solve the crisis in Mist Source Island." "I'll go with you," Tang Han interjected. "Though I have yet to reach the martial arts grandmaster level, I'm just a step away from this stage." Besides, I can also bring a group of experts there in case of emergency. I understand what you have in mind, sis, Tang Shou waved his hand, but for Grandpa to send me here means that he believes that I have the ability to solve all these problems. Please don't worry. There are only a handful of people on the entire Mist Source Island who can make me wary of them. The reason why I'm resorting to schemes and machinations is that I don't feel like calling the shots myself. Besides, the Tang Manor Martial School is the escape route of our Tang family in Mist Source Island. I want it to stay low-key as far as possible and keep it under the radar if there's no need to expose it. Tang Han hesitated for a while before she finally nodded and said, "All right, then. But you must pay attention to your safety. You're not alone here, so don't put yourself in danger." "I know, sis," Tang Xiu replied, and then drove the car away from the Tang Manor Martial School. Right in the middle of the night, he arrived in the forest of more than 10 kilometers north of Mixed Summit City and met Yishir-san and Zidane. "How come there are only the two of you? What about the rest?" "They are currently gathering intel," said Yishir-san respectfully. "We still need to pay attention to the machinations, though we have already laid out the scheme. So we can adjust the plan or add fuel to the flame if some accident happens midway. I really can rest my mind with how all of you guys are doing things, it seems," Tang Shou smiled. "Anyways, what's the situation with that Miao guy?" "Zhang Ju is responsible of keeping an eye on the situation over there, and he has sent me a message 2 hours and 15 minutes ago that Guo Chang, Miao Hengfu's confidant, has led dozens of security guards from Qingyuan Group to rush to the place where we killed Miao Wenlei. But He Xiong sent the news that was not only Miao Wenlei's mobile that got the calls but also all of his 7 goons. He Xiong only turned on and connected the phone for 3+ minutes. But the time should suffice." Tang Xiu squinted his eyes and asked, "You mean, they are tracking its position via satellite? Did people from the Public Security Bureau or the Traffic Police Division got involved in this matter?"
Yeah.
Zidane hacked the network and it's been determined that the Traffic Police Division has intervened, Yishir-san nodded. Originally, the police force from Wolfpack City Public Security Bureau had also gathered there, but for an unknown reason, they were suddenly dismissed. For Miao Hengfu to be able to be the richest man in Mist Source Island means that he has a solid network and personal connections. So it's normal if he has influence in Wolfpack City's Public Security Bureau. Let's just wait. We're going to watch quite a good show. Boss, we may have dug a pit for the Stygian Club and those elementalists to jump inside, but we have no means to monitor it secretly, Yishir-san hesitated and said. If some problems occur on both sides we won't be able to adjust the plan in time. Tang Xiu just smiled and said, Ah has gathered some intel on that. He has found that those elementalists belong to the world's largest organization, the Pyramid. These two organizations, the Stygian Club and the Pyramid, have always been in friction, hence us shifting the blame of the deaths of these elementalists on the Stygian Club would make them tear off all the remaining decorum between them. What I care about now is how much loss would these two parties suffer. Tonight, the several foreign forces on the entire Mist Source Island were in a state of high vigilance and would rumble with the slightest noise. The reason was that dozens of experts from the Pyramid launched a strike against the Stygian Club station in Mist Source Island, and separately killed 4 werewolves and some Viscount-rank vampires in silence. Not only that, but they also took away their dead bodies. Following that, several other foreign forces also suffered ambushes, resulting in 2 organizations suffering heavy losses. The traces left in the battle scenes all had werewolf corpses or vampire-bodied parts without exception. Shortly put, all the spearheads were now pointed at the Stygian Club. In the early morning, as the first ray of sunshine rose from the eastern horizon, the rays brightly illuminated the entire Mist Source Island. Qingyuan Group's HQ. Miao Hengfu received the news and confirmed that Miao Wenlei and the 7 company security guards were all killed and the culprit also left a very insolent message. Not only did they acknowledge that they were from the Reston Mafia, but they also left behind hues and cries to ruin Miao Hengfu and the Qingyuan group. Miao Hengfu burst into a rage and immediately issued an order to the security forces and his own private armed forces to assemble at once. He then distributed the firearms he bought and smuggled secretly. After which, dozens of cars rushed to the place where Miao Wenlei's body was dumped, the convoy personally led by Miao Hengfu. However, just as the convoy left Wolfpack City for more than several kilometers, they were attacked by dozens of armed forces, causing heavy casualties to Miao Hengfu's men in just a few minutes. About a few kilometers away, Tang Xiu took out the binoculars and watched the fierce battle on the road at the foot of the mountain. There was a satisfied smile on his handsome face. The battle itself was very intense, but the majority of the casualties were from Miao Hengfu's men, while the people from the Reston Syndicate only suffered a bit of loss. She appeared. Tang Xiu's expression suddenly moved. Through the clear view of the binoculars, he saw a woman with a long saber appearing amidst the convoy in a flash. She was like a god of death, for every time her saber was unsheathed a life was harvested. In just half a minute, the remaining 40+ people were killed, including Miao Hengfu. That should be the end of the show here. It's time to go. Tang Xiu put away the binoculars and handed it to Yishir-san and spoke with a smile. You just casually used some tricks, yet you solved so many troublesome matters, boss. So darn amazing. Yishir-san smilingly said. Cut out with the flattering, will you? Rebuked Tang Xiu with a smile. Just as he began to walk, a ruthless glint suddenly burst out from his eyes. Get lost. He instantly unleashed the long sword inside his dantian as a tens of meters long resplendent blade light slashed down toward the hillside. More than dozens of large trees were chopped apart, creating dozens of meters long ditch with half a meter depth. Then, a lightning-like shadow jumped out from the violent slashing blade images. Enemy? Yishir-san and Zidane similarly unleashed their flying swords at the same time as their figures flashed lightning fast, and stormed over toward the shadow. In just a few seconds, they had already appeared on both sides of the figure. Stop! Tang Xiu, who followed them closely, shouted before Yishir-san and Zidane unleashed their attacks. The shadow turned out to be Xinlei Duomo. When she killed those dozens of people, she had already sensed that some people were watching in secret. Originally, she was unable to find who the watching people were, and only at the moment when Tang Xiu left did she finally find a strange figure. And yet, never did she expect that the one that greeted her would be a sword with thunder-like power. Who are you? Xinlei Duomo looked rather flustered as she tightly gripped her long saber and furiously shouted. Yet her shock was overwhelming, because she would highly likely be killed instantly by that mighty sword had she not avoided it fast enough. Tang Xiu slightly knitted his brows. He had guesstimated about several identities Xinlei Duomo might possibly have, but it never occurred to him that she was a cultivator as well. More so with such high cultivation level that was only a step away from reaching the golden core stage. After staying silent for a while, he then spoke slowly, a woman from abroad, and you're also the female ringleader of a mafia of all things. And yet, you are actually a cultivator. This is really beyond comprehension.